Hi, I'm Alan Wallach. My book, Solomon's Dozen, is about a senior citizen who wants to bring back his bachelor past after losing his wife. People want to know how the author came to find Solomon Nassau. Here is his interesting story as he told me. As I've gotten older, I've always wondered, and I don't think I'm alone in this, whether people over the age of 70 still really have sex. I'm not talking about the crap you read on CNN's homepage, the human interest bullshit about some couple in their late 90s that were married in their 20s and their true love and commitment has gotten them through 7 decades of marriage. Yawn. That is not what my curiosity is about. My interest is whether or not these people still fuck, get it on, bang each other, and if they are single, whether they get a little crazy and have multiple partners, use toys, do it outdoors in crazy positions. It seems perfectly acceptable in the current social fabric for a young investment banker to explore his most creative sexual fantasies. But what about the old guy in the park with plaid pants feeding the pigeons during the day? What does he do when the lights go down? Like anyone, the last thing I want to imagine is my parents making the beast on a Saturday night. God, no. This is not about that. It's more egocentric than voyeuristic. I want to know for me. Someday, my pubic hair will turn gray too. Is someone going to be pulling it out of her teeth? No one ever really talks about it. I imagine shrinks hear about this kind of thing all the time, but I haven't found one yet that will tell me the gory details. I certainly have not found the details in a book that's not some sort of twisted scientific thesis, some Masters and Johnson case study gone wrong. I like to attend art openings. I was once pursuing a career in painting before I became a journalist. After I traded my oils and brushes for a word processor, I still continued to go to the functions that were once an integral part of whom I had hoped to become. As a result, I tend to socialize fairly often with an older demographic who also frequent these affairs. About 2 years ago, I heard two women, probably in their late 60s, talking about a man, some latter-day Lothario, who seemed to get around. I couldn't tell if one of these women had enjoyed this person's late-night company or not, but what was clear is that they were really enjoying talking about the guy. I eavesdropped for a couple of minutes and then moved on to the dessert tray that was just rolled out. The conversation stuck in my head. Then about 3 months later, I was at a fundraiser for a local museum when I heard another two women talking and having a very similar conversation. One was barely out of her 20s. At first, I didn't realize that they were talking about the same guy, but as I tilted my head to get a better hearing angle, I could tell they were. There was too much coincidence. This time, there was no question that one of them, I couldn't tell which, had dipped into this man's cauldron of debauchery. This conversation was the first inkling I had that all senior citizens don't just look at each other and younger attractive people with a quiet, passive, and maybe resigned or hopeless lust. Something was going on, but I was still not sure exactly what. I was starting to wonder if a good boner is a good boner, and that bald heads, hip replacements, arthritis, canes, and plaid shirts are largely irrelevant, even if those of us in our 30s don't want to necessarily picture it. I still wanted to know. There was one more episode where I heard people talking about the same cunning senior womanizer. I was at an opening for a new art gallery, the kind everyone comes to for free food and an open bar with watery mixed drinks. This time, there was 3 men who spoke in such hushed tones I had to get close enough to smell the denture adhesive. They spoke about him with great reverence. The fattest of the 3 even proposed to compete with the exploits he was hearing about from the other 2, but they would hear none of it. Those 3 old men at the party really cheesed it for me. I had to find this guy. I made a quiet bet to myself that if I found him, he would be not just fun to talk to, but that he would talk a lot. What the hell? Why not? What did he have to lose? What a story I could write. Perhaps a whole book. So I started to make inquiries. My first goal was to find out who he was and then try to find him, assuming he had not departed the mortal coil. As it happens, about 2 weeks after I heard those 3 men talking, I was leaving the local diner with my usual morning coffee and cruller when I ran into the fat guy. He was the 3rd musketeer of that last trio who was trying to compete with a legend. I decided to throw caution to the wind because I knew if I approached him, I would have to admit that I was also listening to his conversation. "Hi, excuse me. Can I speak to you for a minute?" He spun around to look at me. He gave me the once-over. He had very thick tinted glasses, so I had trouble gauging exactly where his eyes were. "Do I know you?" he asked. "No," I said, "but you were at that opening for the Monroe Gallery over on Cumming Street, right?" "Oh yeah, I was there. Very good appetizers." "My name is Alan Wallach, but my friends usually call me Al. I was trying to be as warm as possible." "How you doing, Al? Nice to meet you. You eat crullers like that every day? Watch you don't get one of these." He tugged down the upper section of his shirt to show me the giant scar from his heart surgery. "I'm Murray Moskowitz," he said, extending his hand. "Hi, Murray. Thanks for the tip. I will try to move to grapefruit once a week." We both laughed. "So what did you want to talk to me about?" I moved over into a more quiet corner of the coffee shop's entry, and I waved him over. "I couldn't help but hear you and your friend talking. I was getting a drink, and you guys were loud. They weren't really, but I wanted to imply that I wasn't trying all that hard to hear them, even though I certainly had been. You guys were talking about some other guy, some guy who seemed to be quite successful with the ladies." "I don't remember." "Wait, I know, you must mean Saul. Yeah, he and I both get around." He was insinuating that he was on a par with this latter-day idol and his successes, just like he had done with his friends. I smelled a tall tale might be coming, and I needed to avoid it. "Yeah, that's the guy. Do you know his name and where I might find him? I want to speak with him. I think he knew my mother." "His name is Solomon Nassau. I've known him for years. His wife passed away about 15 years ago, and over the last 10, I've seen him less and less. Lately, not at all. I don't think I've seen him in a couple of years." "But you were talking about him, weren't you?" "Sure, but Saul is someone you don't forget, so we keep talking about him." "Do you know where he lives?" I asked, hoping I wouldn't get a dead end. "Well, he used to have a townhouse in Beckett, that Beckett Highlands development. He moved there with his wife after his daughters left. I'm not sure if he's still there." Murray looked at his watch. I did not want to keep him or press him anymore. "Thanks, Murray. I'll let you go, and I will see what I can find out. I'll see you around the next event in town." "Sure thing, Al. Stay safe. And watch those crullers." He lit up a cigar, zipped up his coat, and walked out. I followed and walked the other way to my car, thinking about finding Solomon Nassau. Beckett Highlands was a development of townhouses not too far from the center of town. The next day, after I had handed in a feature about corruption in one local town's departments, I decided to try to track down Mr. Nassau. I drove over to the development. A security guard walked by on his way to the little glass booth that guards the entrance. I stopped him. "Hi, I'm looking for someone. I don't see his name on any mailbox. Maybe you can help me." "Who are you looking for?" he asked. He also had thick-tinted glasses. It seemed that somewhere a sunglass dealer was trying to get rid of an overstock. "Someone named Nassau," I said. "Solomon Nassau." "Oh, Dirty Sol. Ha! He moved into a residence for seniors about a couple of years ago. I missed that guy. What stories he had." He was grinning from ear to ear. "Dirty Sol? Where did that nickname come from?" I asked, with my interest piqued. "I don't remember exactly. I think some of the other ladies in the complex called him that. I heard it once, and it just kind of stuck in my head. That guy was something else." "So where's he at?" I asked. "Is he still with us? Do you know?" "I think he's at the Park Hill residence in Hancock, not too far from the ski place. I don't know if he's still there, but I imagine he is. He's a tough old coot, a great sense of humor. He just couldn't manage the large condo he owned, so he sold it and moved into Park Hill. He thought it would be easier for him since his wife died. If you see him, tell him Wally says hi." I drove away from Beckett Highlands and was off to Hancock to Park Hill the next day. I walked into the building and asked at the reception desk where I might find Mr. Nassau. The receptionist gestured to a sunny lounge at the end of the hallway off the front entrance hall. I thanked her and walked down to the lounge. When I got there, I saw pretty much what you would expect. Seniors playing cards, some watching Jeopardy on TV and yelling out answers. Others were visiting with younger friends or relatives, and a few were just staring out the window. I scanned around the room, and in the far corner, I saw two younger women with uniforms on, and two older women congregating and laughing. As one of them stepped aside, I could see a salt and pepper-haired man, about 6 feet tall, in the center of the semicircle the women were forming. He had a big grin on his face, and the women were hanging on his every word. This had to be him, and he definitely still looked like he could still get it on if the situation presented itself. I walked across the room and approached the group. "Excuse me, are you Solomon?" I asked. "That's what they tell me," he said, smiling. "Who wants to know?" The women dispersed, and the Park Hill employees that were standing there kind of snapped back to reality, as if they had forgotten what they were there for. They said their see you laters, and Solomon and I were left standing alone. I could feel the energy flowing off this guy. If auras do in fact exist, this guy had a rainbow. "Hi, Solomon. My name is Alan," I said, shaking his hand. "I'm a writer and a journalist, and I was wondering if I could speak with you for a few minutes." "A writer, huh? Have I read anything you've written?" "Wait, journalist. Do you write for the Eagle? I seem to remember seeing an Alan in those bylines all the time." "Yeah, that's me," I replied, impressed with his memory, even more impressed that he read the Eagle, the Berkshire Eagle. It was once a great paper, but now I thought it was mostly used for lining cat litter pans. It also may have been only the second time someone had ever actually heard of me. He invited me to lunch in the cafeteria, and I told him what I was interested in, and his eyebrows shot up, but he agreed to let me interview him and maybe tell his story. I asked him then, You're a writer, or at least you were. Did you ever think about writing your own memoir? Ha, I can't do it. I haven't got the desire or the patience. Besides, you know very well it's a lot of work. I'm too busy enjoying myself. So a week later, I began what turned out to be regular weekly visits to Park Hill, resulting in many hours of discussing Solomon's life and his escapades with my tape recorder running. He actually did have a notebook, his catalog, a pretty sizable record that he kept, and told me that Don Giovanni was his role model initially, but things turned out very differently than they did for the opera basso. And he was right. It was a lot of work to get this out. I felt that the best way to chronicle Sal's adventures was to let his exploits tell his story and give you some of the insight I got into who he is as well as what he is. So I picked out 12 escapades from his notebook and from the stories he told me. The anecdotes go from the basic to the bizarre, and the treatise relates them to you just as he told them to me, with some modest editing, but with very little of the seamy details left out. This chronicle is a tale, only a small part of a saga about an old guy who in the November of his life aspired to more than I can imagine at my age and lived out his fantasies. Now I'll let Sal introduce you to his amazing escapades himself. Signed, Alan Wallach. And now, if you go to the link at the bottom of this video, it will take you to the proper place where you can buy the book if you want to read any of the episodes. Goodbye for now, and I hope you enjoy the book.